Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show, and today we have another incredible guest with us. Super excited. He is known really for some email marketing, being successful as an entrepreneur with the blessed, I think it's a gift, honestly. It's called attention deficit hyperactive disorder or something like that. I don't even know, but he's got that gift. He's got dyslexia, another phenomenal gift. If you're looking for email marketing, you get to see the world in a different way, which really is helpful, honestly. He's been an inspirational speaker, international speaker. He's helped thousands of people really help more people. So that's the big thing. He's actually a doctor of physical therapy, certified himself. I mean, he's just a ton of stuff as far as his experience goes. And the biggest thing is not only does he teach about it and help other people, but he practices what he's doing. So that's his whole entire goal. But his mission and why he's doing what he's doing is really to save 1 million people from unnecessary surgeries by helping them and other passionate therapists succeed in business and learn how to market directly to their patients, right? Rather than missing the mark and somebody not knowing what they're supposed to be doing. So thank you so much, Dr. Aaron LeBauer, for being on the show today. And just go ahead and tell us your story. Tell us where you started. How did you actually get into it? I mean, you've done so much in your life. How did you get to where you're at, and why did you end here? And I say end here. It's probably not the end of your journey, but why are you where you are right now, and why are you so passionate about it?
Yeah. Hey, Samuel, thanks for having me on your show. It's great to be here. Let's see. I think if I look back, how did I get here? Someone just asked me that earlier this morning. The short answer is, the real short answer is I was pre-med in college. I got to organic chemistry, and at the first night's homework, I decided 4 hours of homework one night, every night, for one class wasn't worth my time. There were
always OChem.
Yep.
Always OChem. That just,
I was just like, right, I got an A the year before in regular chemistry, and I was just like, this is review, and it's going to take me 4 hours to teach it back to myself again and do it. I was like, this isn't it. So after college, I had moved out from North Carolina out to California. I was working like some really shitty jobs as a temp. I was making $14 an hour, and people were expecting that I didn't even know the alphabet. They would some woman walk me through the alphabet because I was just supposed to take some 10 file cabinets and take all the files and spread it out into 20. And so she walked me through the whole alphabet like I'd never done it before. It was just things like that. And so I found my way to massage therapy school. And I became a massage therapist, and partly because I wanted to not just work, but I wanted to race bicycles. So becoming a massage therapist allowed me to make anywhere from $25 to $80 an hour, depending on whether I worked for someone else and got no tips or I worked for myself. And I could spend 20 hours a week riding my bike, training, weekends traveling to go race. And I did that for long enough that patients came to me, clients said, Aaron, you're the first person to touch me where I hurt. I've been to see everybody, and you're the first person to help me. I've been to see chiropractors, acupuncturists, massage therapists, PTs, been to orthopedic surgeon, had the surgery, been to everything. And, no one's touched me there. And, after you worked on me, I felt better than I ever have. And I realized that I needed to learn more, because as a massage therapist, we were not taught how to, diagnose movement, or really even tell patients, hey, when you're going to get better. Because they would say, hey, when do you think it's better, but when do you think I'm going to get really better? And so I went back to PT school to learn that, but also to be called Dr. LeBauer. Like I paid for my degree to have the DR period in front of my name, because now people will respect my opinion a little bit more than Aaron, the massage therapist, but still Aaron, the doctor of physical therapy, doesn't have the weight of Dr. Smith, the orthopedic surgeon, because everyone thinks they need a quick fix, and orthopedic and surgery and injection can really help them, but they just don't want to do the work. And so like our culture is that you need an MRI and X-ray to know what's going on, but that's not really the case. So then I'm a physical therapist I'm in PT school. And I realized that I saw 43 patients one day on my first clinical rotation. I realized that day that I couldn't treat patients the way that I knew they needed to be treated in the traditional model. And so I said, I decided, well, I'm just going to have to start my own business when I graduate. And my clinical supervisor said, it's never going to work. People won't pay more than their copay for PT. And I said, okay, I hear you, but let's check in 3 years. I was already charging $85 an hour as a massage therapist. And I thought, well, maybe what if I'll just add $10, and people will come see me. And they did. And we charge much more than that, but we don't charge per time. We sell a program and plan of care. But the point is that it worked. Then people started asking me, how'd I do it? And I started teaching them. And I said to my wife one day, I was like, God, I just told these 2 classmates of mine, like everything I knew. And they didn't even say thank you or send me a message, say, hey, I really appreciate your time. And she said, don't give away anything for free when you expect something in return. I was like, God, that's very wise. And then the next day I had a call with someone else. At the end of the call, she was like, well, how much do I owe you? I was like, well, what do you mean? How much do you owe me? She's like, well, this is very valuable. And she's like, well, what do you charge your patients? And I said, well, this is what I charge. And so she paid me that, which is much more than where I started. And then I sat down that day and I wrote down, here's what I charge for consulting. When I first launched a blog, I got a cease and desist letter, as well as a invitation to speak at a big private practice event. So I knew then that something was good, and so I launched a course on how to launch a physical therapy practice that's doesn't rely on insurance companies. And then over time, I realized people don't just need the information, they need help in implementation. And so now we have a Platinum Mastermind group, which is a high-level group for physical therapy business owners who have in-person clinics and online businesses to help them, scale to multiple 6 and 7 figures in 2 to 3 years.
Awesome. I'm like my chicken scratch. I hope I can read my notes because there's so many here. Okay, so I want to go back because that's a very interesting thing. So I'm curious about in this process, because I know a few people who've gone through school, especially massage therapy. And massage therapy, not saying that that's all you do, but that can be some massage therapists I know, they have a short shelf life as far as practice. Then others have managed to do it for a lot longer.
Right.
And so I'm just curious, like, what is the difference between, like, what would cause a massage therapist to have a shorter shelf life than a longer shelf life as far as actually being able to help patients?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things, and somewhat similar to physical therapists, but physical therapy is still a little different.
Sure.
I think there are people that go do it, and they're doing it because they think they were sold into it. They think it's like good money and easy work, and you only have to see 15, 20 people a week. But they end up getting into working somewhere that pays them really little, expects them to see 8 patients a day pretty much right away, and they get burnt out really quick. I think that, so number one, if you do a career for the wrong reason, you always burn out. But with massage therapy, it's very body intensive. Like I have to work with my body and take care of my body. And a lot of people don't take care of their bodies these days. And so they'll go see even, 5 patients a day, 5 days a week, 25 people. It's a lot of people for body work, right? And then people go, okay, but I'm only making X amount, so I need to see more people. Well, they can only see so many more people, and you start to get burnt out, especially if you don't really love it, or you don't like working with people who are in pain or touching other people. I mean, you gotta like touching other people to do it. So I think those are some of the reasons that specifically like massage therapists I've seen get burnt out. It's hard work. I mean, I've done body work I did body work for 20 years before I stopped treating patients. And, like my sweet spot was 18 people a week, and the fallacy is that most people operate under is I have to work harder or longer hours to make more money versus, solve a bigger problem.
Right. Exactly. So let's talk. I mean, it seems a little scattered, but I promise it all comes together at the end of my question path. But so that's one half of it. The other half of it is, when did you start your family? When did you get married, and how did that develop around? Because you're racing bikes. I'm assuming dirt bike racing, but
like road bicycles, Tour de France style bikes.
Okay, so you're motocross in the street bike,
right? So not with a motor, just like riding pedal bikes.
Just pedal bikes, so actual cycling.
Yep.
Right.
So I ride motorcycles, but I don't race them. I'm not that stupid.
Well, the thing is, how fast do you get going on an actual bicycle?
Oh, I've been over 60 miles an hour.
Yeah, I mean, you're going 60 miles an hour on this. At least the bikes now, I mean, they're basically made of graphite. You crash and they're shattered. They're super lightweight.
The only protective equipment is a helmet on your head.
Yeah. So I don't know which is safer. Really?
I fallen at 42 miles an hour and ended up in hospital in Iowa and didn't know why I was in Iowa. So
yeah, that's crazy. But these are very like intensive things to get good at and to do well. Like the bikers that I know, especially if you're talking about cycling, cycling is something that I've seen people have to be very consistent with to do competitively anyways. If you're just going to go for cycling because you enjoy it, it's different. But even those people who just do it because they enjoy it, they're out almost every day cycling for 20 miles. You know, they really enjoy the activity. So how did the relationship develop, and how supportive was your wife initially and all of that? Did she do it with you? Kind of go into that a little bit.
Yeah. I think, I was racing bikes and dating a little bit and just didn't have a lot of time, and ended up like meeting my wife, and it was like right away, it was like we had a really deep connection, and it was great. It was great. And I think, I don't know, I was young, but maybe one of the mistakes or one of the things I said is like, I told her, I was like, look, I've got I was living in San Francisco, I had bicycles on the wall over the bed, like 5 bikes in the room. I was like, look, I see these bikes, like I'm dedicated to this bike stuff, and they're here and they're my priority.
Just a little.
Yeah, just a little. There's 3 in the closet and 1 over the bed and 1 in the kitchen. And like I have priority, and it's there's something about me that's probably not that may have not been the best thing to say, but she stuck with me. But I think what I was trying to explain to her is that when I go all in on something, I'm all in. When I know now, as 48-year-old Aaron instead of 26-year-old Aaron, is that what I'm trying to say is I'm dedicated to this, and this is my focus. And when I focus and commit to something, I'm all in. And really, it's like, hey, if and at the time I was like scared to commit to her because I was young. I was like, this is really great, but it's really about saying, here's what when I've picked something and I finally choose to do something, like I'm all in or I'm all out. And I think also the way life was in San Francisco, it wasn't like easy for her to come move in with me. So we lived separate. We dated and lived separate for about 4 years. But at one point, we looked for about 8 months to a year for a place to move in together, and we couldn't find one. We couldn't find one that we could afford in the area we wanted. And we tried to move in with some other friends, and we looked for another 6 months, and it was just like we couldn't find a place. And then we ended up leaving town and moving down to San Luis Obispo, which is where she was from, or where she was from, where her grandmother and brother and uncle were living, and we lived there for a year. But how'd that all fit in? She was really supportive of the bicycle racing, more than I expected. But really where it came down to, she was the one that encouraged me to go to PT school and was like, you should, because of what you're doing with your patients, you should go look at physical therapy. Like if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be a physical therapist. And the whole time she had supported me and was like, do what you need to do. If you're going to open a business, like we had both owned our own massage practices, so it wasn't that foreign. But she's like, she'll support me, and she has, and she's been great.
That's awesome. No, I think I wanted to share that. I didn't know all of the background, but I just know the story of success often comes from a powerful team. And the other thing that you mentioned, that anybody who knows my story, if this is your first episode listening, then you probably don't know this about me, so I'll just share it briefly. But that's about what I told my wife when we got married. I was like, look, we were actually on a mountain bike ride, not a street bike, but on a mountain bike ride, and going up the mountain. She's like, you can just go ahead of me. And I'm like, wait, I'm not looking for a relationship that's like half in, half out. We'll just ditch the other person when the other person's struggling. Like, we're either all in or we can turn these bikes around and be done. Like, I'm not looking for this half type relationship. And it's somewhat scary to be that forward with somebody and be like, look, this is my priority. This is my dedication. But it's also really powerful, and my wife would say this now, to be able to see that type of dedication and say, you know what? If he's half that dedicated to me, I'm going to be okay, you know? Like, so that type of commitment is really, really powerful. And it bleeds through the rest of this scenario, both in the dedication on your side and the supportive spouse that is nudging along the way. Hey, go do this, go to the next level, go to the next level, go to the next level. Because sometimes one of the downsides to dedication, in my experience, is when you get so dedicated to one thing, you forget to look up and see what the next step is. You're still like so focused on honing in on being good at what you're good at that you forget how to go to the next level to help more people. And that's a downside. It's a blessing, right? But it's also the downside to dedication. So at what point it sounds like you realized that when you realized you wish you were getting compensated, at least in thank yous for your efforts. Right. But was there a time before that you realized that, man, I really should be doing more than just being great at what I'm doing, but I should be doing more?
Well, I knew, so like when I was a temp in San Francisco and I was parked on the 43rd floor of Embarcadero 3, so 3 of 4 buildings, the undergrads were there for the summer and on their internships, and they were just like, you've made it when you have a window cubicle. What? Like, that didn't make any sense to me, and I'm got a college degree and being given the alphabet, and they're taking out the lunch every day. And I just realized there's no way I'm getting stuck in here. And I even knew, as I went into massage therapy, which is about a year or so before I went to massage therapy school, I even knew, like, around that time, it's like, if I do just the same thing for more than 10 years, I'm going to be disappointed in myself. I always knew, like, there's always going to be this next thing. But when I was working in my own business, in that first 5 years, I didn't know, okay, I'm going to go teach this. The whole thing that our industry was telling me is that this isn't possible. And so all I was doing was working for about 4.5 years just to prove everyone else wrong. And it was somewhere around, so I started helping people and built this course. But after so that was right around like year 3.5 or 4, and to teach people how to do it. But I met a friend who was doing something very similar, and I just had this aha, and I was like, oh, I need to like hire someone else to help me, to free up my time so I can help more people. But people were asking me for help, and it just kind of came that I saw, like, I was given an opportunity by a friend of mine who's from England to see an opportunity to do something that no one else was doing in PT or was able to show me. And it just kind of clicked. And I was like, oh, this is the next thing. But it wasn't planned. It just kind of came along. But it was also because I was hanging out around people who were more successful than me or had the same mindset as me, that this next level shifted. And now for the last 8 years, it's been like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. Now let me go ahead and look and figure out what are the next 2 steps ahead. So I'm already looking at, here's where I'm at now, but what are my next 2 or 3 steps ahead in my like career trajectory? And so now it's more of not really a plan, but a focus on the opportunities that are available.
Sure, which I love. So let's talk about this, because you created this training course, and I'm just curious, because I don't know how much of it was, one of the things in your story that you mentioned was how people felt after coming to you versus coming to all the other doctors. So there's one thing to duplicate how to create a profitable practice on your own. There's another to duplicate how to, quote unquote, touch people the right way so that they actually get healed. When you're creating these courses, are you training both, like the actual modality and how to build a business doing the modality? Or are you more just saying, this is the business focus, if you can do it with any modality, just this is how I did it?
Yeah.
What's your focus there?
The second one, I'm not teaching treatment techniques, because there's so many different definitions to physical therapy, air quotes, physical therapy. Physical therapy means a lot of different things to a lot of people. Most people think it's just post-surgical rehab, which is just what most people see. But physical therapy, we treat headaches, jaw pain, pelvic floor dysfunction. We treat people with neurological conditions, strokes, Parkinson's, knee replacements, like people that are old. Like we do skin wound care, like we debride like old dying like tissue. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can do. Other physical therapists coach other PTs. And so I left that out. And the other reason is even in what I do, which is orthopedics, there's no clear best way to treat back pain. Okay. So what I didn't want to do is come across and start isolating people and saying, hey, if you don't treat back pain the way I do, you can't take my course and you can't be successful. Like, one, that's just not true. And two, it wasn't my passion to teach that. I had started a business with another friend of mine here locally to teach treatment techniques, independent of business. And it kind of fell apart, and it wasn't really my passion to teach that and do that. So the course I have there's like 5 to 10% of it's relevant to physical therapy. I've had massage therapists, chiropractors, acupuncturists, psychotherapists, health coaches go through the course because it's a business course. But what really makes the big difference looking back at why I was able to help people is because I had time. I had time to listen to their story and to problem solve and touch them where they hurt. Most healthcare providers have 5 to 20 minutes, and especially physicians. And they order an image first, and then they look at the image and go, oh, here's the problem, without even touching you. And we know from research that, let's say, for instance, 100 people who do not have back pain, if they all had an MRI of their low back, we'd find a pathological problem in 55 to 60% of them. And that doesn't mean anything. It just means that that's part of the aging process. It's like wrinkles on the inside. But all too often, people are told, oh, your back pain is due to this thing. We need to take that thing out or fix that thing. And it really has nothing to do with the thing that we saw. It has a lot to do with many other factors.
That's kind of a scary statistic.
It is. The worst statistic is over the age of, I think, 70 years old, if you fall and fracture your hip, you're half the people who do that end up in long-term care facility. About 70% of people over the age of 70 or 75 who fall and fracture their hip or pelvis die within a year.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I work in insurance, and I found that like knee surgeries, it's very similar. If you have a knee surgery, there's a high correlation of early death after knee surgery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, primarily from infection and blood clots.
Right, and it's like it's interesting because even an otherwise very healthy person, it doesn't matter what age you are now. If you have had a knee surgery, now all the bells and whistles and the actuaries' minds go off like, whoa, are they going to die next year? And it's like, no, they're not going to die. But anyways, it's fascinating. Yeah. So with that, those are, I'm trying to figure out how the best way to ask this is, what do you think made you so successful? So you had these people tell you it's not going to happen, you can't do it, people aren't going to pay over copay, right? And that's the big lie everywhere.
Yep.
The big lie everywhere is that it's a race to the bottom as far as undercharging, right? It's a race to the bottom. Say, whoever has the cheapest discount, that's going to win. I think that's a very it's a poor mindset to operate from, but more importantly, it's a very disrespectful mindset to the people you're operating with. It's like basically assuming that they're so dumb and that they care nothing other than money. Like they don't care about their children. They don't care about their family. They don't care about their experiences in life. All they care about is it the right dollar amount? And I think that's a pretty heartless way to see the world, let alone the fact that you are caring about that. Yeah. And so what do you feel was the biggest difference in separating yourself off and create? I wrote down 3 things that I think are the biggest differences, but I'm curious what you are going to say, the 3 biggest areas of helping those clients come to an understanding that it was worth paying more and actually getting the help they needed rather than paying less and potentially screwing themselves up.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things we've done over the years, but I think it boils down to this. It's listening to people, right? Giving them an opportunity to share their story, because you go see a physician, medical provider right now, you don't have 10 minutes to talk about what's going on. So doing that, but also what allows us to charge way more than a copay and for people to be happy to do it and pay it is that we focus our time on figuring out like where the root cause of the problem is, not just your shoulder and doing a shoulder protocol. It's figuring out like, where is this problem coming from so we can fix it for good. But that's still secondary to finding out from someone, what is your shoulder problem keeping you from doing? Okay, it's keeping me from playing tennis or lifting my kid up over my head or luggage onto the airplane or even like, pressing a barbell overhead. Okay, so why is that important to you? Oh, because when I go to the gym, I feel less stress. Okay, why is feeling less stress important to you? It's because it reduces my anxiety. Okay, what does having less anxiety help you with? Well, when I get home, I can be a good role model for my kids. Okay, and I can be present with them. Okay, great. Would you like me to help you get to a point where you feel like you're a good role model and present with your kids because your shoulder, without worrying about your shoulder? Yes. Okay. Now I know like what the problem is, but I know what the problem it's causing is, and I know why someone wants to make a change. And if they just come to us and says, oh, my doctor told me I need the physical therapy, like they're never going to be our patient. But if someone is coming looking for a solution to a problem and they're willing to, like go through that conversation with us, it doesn't matter what we charge because what we offer isn't what you can get down the street. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the three things I wrote down, because I think there's elements of all three of these things in there, but one is communication, and you actually communicate. One, you communicate to them and you allow them to communicate to you. So better communication of allowing that conversation to actually happen. That's huge. Like without communication, and guys, this goes to any business. It goes into parenting. You want your kids to do something. If you just go and demand it, like maybe the traditional industry, you're going to maybe get short-term fixes, but long-term, there's going to be more pain and sorrow in your future because you can only demand obedience until your child is so old. And then they're like, major middle finger to you, and then you just kind of just like, okay, well, I hope you don't die. There's not much you can do after that. So establishing a baseline, very effective, open, honest, clear, caring communication, and then this is what I think would be, well, there's two sides of this. One, so I wrote them down in this order: marketing is everything, communication, and then education, right? So at some point, the people who are coming to you, they have to have heard of you some way, right? If they've never heard of you, what brings them to you versus the next physical therapist down the street who's just going to do the same thing that everybody else does?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of things that we do is, I've got lead magnets on our website. I mean, like I only had one for a while during the pandemic. I created two more. But I have a lead magnet. We have a podcast now. We have 80 something 5-star Google reviews. We have incredible word of mouth, but I use email marketing to cultivate the word of mouth, to share information with to share your experience with your friends and family, leave us reviews. And it's one of those things where communication wise, we over communicate, right? And it allows people to feel seen and heard. And it's personalized. So they're like, oh, wow, like this is Dr. LeBauer is really sending me a message and it's personalized to my problem. And that goes an incredibly long way in building relationships with people.
Right. So marketing to get the right information to the right people, knowing your niche, being able to communicate clearly. So marketing, communication, over communicating from your side, also sharing that information, having them trust you with that information. All of that's part of communication. And then education. My assumption, although not, I don't know because I didn't analyze your whole business, but from what I have seen of your business, my assumption is that when you're bringing somebody in, you're not just saying, okay, well, what's all the pain? Why is it, get to, oh, I want to be a better dad. Okay, great. I'm going to help you be a better dad. And let's go do this 1 or 2 procedures. There's an education about, hey, you got into this mess. Your back pain was created by these habits in your life. What if we change some of these habits? What if we change the way so you're educating them about why and how they got to where they are and what it's going to take to get out. Mm-hmm. And then people, I don't know, is that true? Is that
exactly? Yeah, we follow you. You become a new patient and you get a follow-up email from me with a video. It's like, hey, here's the ball that you probably got, and here's how you can treat yourself to, feel better. There's another follow-up. It's like, here's why you might be feeling sore today, and here's what to do when your body hurts, and hey, and then a couple of days later, hey, here's what to do X. By the way, here our goal is to help 25,000 people in Greensboro avoid unnecessary imaging and expensive surgery. If you have a friend or family member who you feel like needs some help, please reach out to us, like different things like that. And it just kind of goes along, and we're educating people before they become a patient client in both my businesses and then after.
Yeah, no, I think that's huge. And so the education part, that's not just initial, but it's an ongoing thing. And that leads to more back into the marketing. It's a cyclical function, but that education, this stuff, it's the same in every business. Okay. The reason I didn't have to analyze his business specifically is because I understand business and what is so effective. Apple isn't so great because Apple has to educate everybody on how Apple works. Apple has made it part of their culture for everybody who has an Apple phone to go recruit somebody else to get an Apple phone and then to teach them how to use it. Like, that's part of the Apple culture. Hey, I just saw this quick tip. Did you know your phone could do this? Oh my gosh, I need my phone to do that, right? So it's that same culture that the education is part of the marketing. And the key here is when they said, hey, you're never going to be able to charge that much, people will pay when they understand what they're paying for. Most people don't know what they're paying for. They're just like, well, the insurance company charges a bunch, so I only want to pay a portion. But they think they're paying for a surgery. They're paying for what they're not really paying for. And so when you're able to educate, then people are willing to pay more money because then they think, okay, now I understand why I'm paying the money.
Oh, yeah. People don't know what they're paying for. We had a patient get really mad at us during 2020, like came and yelled at my staff. But what ultimately she was upset about was that her daughter's knee surgery wasn't covered by her insurance. So she got mad at us because we were the people that she could see and reach out to. But it was like, okay, what are we paying for? We're paying for, like with healthcare insurance these days, we're paying to make sure that there's not a catastrophe. Like, we don't go bankrupt if I end up in the hospital for 3 days, not like routine surgery to cover routine surgery or even like a knee surgery. Like, you have a $5,000 deductible, like your insurance isn't going to cover much because a knee surgery costs about $3,000 plus physical therapy. And you come see us for you're still going to end up underneath your deductible, and insurance isn't going to cover much, but they're going to keep you from going $100,000 or more into debt, into bankruptcy. And I think that, like, to me, so what you're saying is the expectation of what I'm getting is really important, but a lot of people don't even know, they're not paying attention, or they don't, or things have changed. And we have to really kind of anticipate it, right? We have to anticipate that people don't understand insurance in our clinic. And I have to anticipate that people in my coaching programs don't really understand what they got. So I have to follow up with them and be like, here's what you got. Here's, where you need to go to get it, and it's, but it's really interesting when we look at how we operate as humans. Like, we also just think that by making this decision, the problem's going to be solved for me, but I actually have to participate. I have to know what I'm getting, and I have to actually do some work, and people just want no responsibility for it. And it's, I don't know, it's frustrating sometimes and sad to see.
Absolutely. And when you're going to coach other people to go and offer those things, that's another part of when you're paying for coaching, you're paying to hopefully get the understanding of why you're doing what you're doing. Because a lot of times people come in, they'll start a business, and they think they're charging for the same thing that the client thinks they're paying for. And so it's a race to the bottom. Who can charge the least? Who's willing to have the least amount of food on their table at home for their family to get more clients? Who's willing to work an extra hour to get more clients? rather than, hey, I spent X amount of years in school. You're paying for all of my expertise, not the amount of time it takes for me to help you.
Right.
And that's a big thing. So I think marketing, communication, education, they're all absolutely intertwined. But I love the thing where you said listening to people and just having a conversation and creating the time to do that.
Yep. Yeah, I think, one of the problems is insurance won't reimburse a provider for taking a medical history or answering questions. And so it's procedure driven. And so that's getting cut out of healthcare. But I think what's really important is having patience, but also like coaching clients understand that we know where their problem is, where their pain or hurt is. We know where their problems are. And you can really only do that by asking questions and listening to the answer.
Right. And oftentimes, this is my experience, right? I work in a completely different industry, but yet the same industry, because the difference between finance and health is basically the same. Because you're dealing with the financial conversations of how do they get the health. I'm dealing with the health questions of how do they get the finances. So it's like, they're very intertwined. And I don't know who said this, but if you're a billionaire and you wake up with a cold, it still sucks, It doesn't matter how much money you have. If you're feeling bad, you're feeling bad, and all the money in the world you don't look at your pile of cash or your bank account and you're like, yeah, it's okay. I just lost my legs to amputation, but at least I've got $1 billion. Like, you don't think that. You think, this sucks. How do I get my legs back, And so health and wealth are intricately connected, which kind of leads me to the next question and thing that you brought up of don't give away for free what you expect some type of return for. Go into a little bit more detail about that. Obviously, it came up through those 2 or 3 experiences, but what have you learned since then, and how did you determine how much to charge for your coaching programs? Yeah,
that's great. I think the best analogy to start with is it's kind of like lending money to a friend. You lend $1,000 to a friend. Okay, now that friend never pays you back and you lose a friend because you have resentment, right? Or, so you can't give someone, I think it's like, you can't give someone something free because, unless you have a contract. And even with a contract, I invested in a kid's business, $2,000. I was okay to lose it, but he didn't, and I was going to get a percentage of the business, but he ended up quitting the business and was like, I'll pay you back. And he hadn't paid me back. And I'm like, okay, like whenever you're going to pay me back, like after you do that, then we can keep doing other things together. And I haven't seen it and I don't miss it. I'm not hurting for it. But I think the point is that when something's free, people don't value it. And when people pay, they pay attention. And so I kind of learned to price my programs, I wouldn't say the wrong way, but just by making mistakes or trial and error. So my online course, I launched it. I didn't think anyone would buy it. And I said, hey, $197 and you get all these things. And I sold the course before I launched it. And I sold 25 of them in a weekend. So I made $5,000 and it's like, okay, $5,000, I got to buy the course and then raise the price. My mastermind program is where I really learned the value of like what people will do and pay attention to. A few years later, I realized that people didn't just need the course. They needed like ongoing help and coaching. So I started with a $97 a month program. Well, I was just getting messages of people like, why are you charging me $97? Because I'd say, hey, get the course and you can get 3 months of the program for free. And then in 90 days, they were like, why'd you charge me? I was like, because you opted in to the deal and you agreed. Like, and that's why I said they don't know what people are buying or getting. And so I had like 40, 50 people in it. I'd still get 8 to 9 people to show up on a coaching call. Then I raised the price to $397. And I, ended up, so I still had some people at 97 and then I had, a bunch of people at $397. And I kind of switched the offer around a little bit. I said, okay, buy the coaching, get the course for free. People only stayed for the course, they only stayed for 3 months and they still didn't show up on calls. And I was like, all right. So I went from $397 to, $1,000 a month. And I enrolled my first 6 people in my mastermind and then started charging $1,500 a month. And now it's $1,800 and soon it'll be $2,000. We've got over 40 people in the group and everyone shows up to calls because it's a significant amount of money for them. and 300 can be a significant amount of money for somebody, but for a physical therapist who's a doctor of physical therapy, they have a job making $60,000 to $80,000. It's like it had to be over $1,000 for them to start paying attention. And I think the other piece of that is people ask, well, how can you charge so much for physical therapy or for coaching? And it's, in coaching, there's coaches that charge more than I do. But for physical therapy is if I only sell physical therapy, no one's going to buy what I have at 5 times the price. What I have to sell for both PT and coaching is I have to sell the result people want, not the delivery method. So I'm not going to sell my time or how I deliver the coaching. I'm going to sell them into a path to getting what they want. And that all comes from a sales conversation.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing. And that's, again, this goes back to principles about life that everybody needs to understand. And I mean everybody. I don't care if you're 6 years old. The sooner you learn this, the more unhappy your parents will be. But also, the more happy they'll be because there'll be less whining. There'll be more active communication and expression of, hey, these are the benefits to me getting what I want. Okay, these are the downsides. Nah, I'm just kidding, 6-year-olds. Forget that. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter where you're at. If you're a parent at home, at work, at school, in a religious setting, every situation comes down to a service of helping somebody else really identify what they want and then providing a solution as to how they can get what they want. Mm-hmm. And that is where I think our culture doesn't, especially people who think they want something for free, they don't understand that free is not going to help them get to where they want to be. Like, even if you gave your course away for free, nobody would use it because, as you said, those who pay attention, and it has to be, it's not, you're no longer charging for what the quote unquote course is worth. You're charging for what that individual believes their progression is worth.
Right. Oh, 100%. And if people get something for free, they don't value it. Like, they just won't go through it. They won't spend the 20 hours it takes to, watch and do the work. I mean, the work probably takes another 20 hours. And I was trying to sell one of my programs through Messenger this week. And, this is my course that helps you launch a 6-figure physical therapy business. And he's like, is that 3 payments of $550? I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, I think I'm gonna have to hold off because, I don't take the board exam until 2 weeks from now. I'm like, so you just spent $100,000 for school and you have to hold off on $550 right now to build a 6-figure business. So the problem isn't the money at that point. It's like, but they're thinking it's the money. They're like, oh, that's too expensive. It's the fact that he doesn't want to do this yet or doesn't believe in himself that he can do this. And this wasn't from a sales conversation as much as just a couple of messages back and forth where we could really dive into that. But my time's worth more than getting on phone calls with people for $500.
Right. Yeah. And the reality is that's where education comes back. That person doesn't necessarily have to have all those conversations because, as we've just talked about, we're in completely different industries and the conversation's the same no matter what area of your life you're in. And so Aaron can then tailor his conversation knowing the 7 basic objections, knowing basically why people aren't moving forward. He can then create content, turn it into email campaigns, lead magnets, creating free resources on the website of like, here's the how-to, blah, 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 blah. Now the reality is, again, you give all the how-tos away and then people still are like, can you just help me? Because like I gave you all can you just be my accountability partner? Yeah. Just to hold you accountable, it's $1,800 a month. You want in? I'm paying to help you be accountable, or rather you're paying me to hold you accountable. Right. And also to know where you're screwing it up because I've done it. Right. Mm-hmm. So those are huge, huge principles that I wanted to hit on. I want to talk about the last thing you said, because I think this is the key to all success. And I was just listening to a podcast today actually about this. And it's an interesting dichotomy because people are scared of the cease and desist letters. They're scared of the lawsuits. They're scared of the hate mail. They're scared of all the people telling them no. When in reality, at least for you, the way you said it, now whether this is factually true or not, I don't really care. But the idea is great. They both come in the same day. The cease and desist and the invitation to move forward and take the next step and double down on what you're doing, they both come in the same time in your life. So you're going to have the people who hate you and the people who love you, the people who want to stop you and the people who are, please give me more. And you get to choose which voice to listen to. So go into a little bit of detail there. How did you like emotionally respond to that? Like you get a cease and desist order and an invitation to speak. And it's like, how do you fulfill both, right?
Yeah, that was really difficult. I was like crushed for a while. I was just like, what is this? Like, why am I getting a cease and desist for this? And it boiled down like to, but then getting an invitation to speak was great. I was like, holy cow. I'm definitely going to do this. I mean, I know in hindsight that these are good signs, but in the moment I was like, oh no, I just put a lot of work into launching my blog because I put a blog together so that I didn't have to answer the same questions over and over again. I just put a blog together so I could say, hey, go check out my blog. And one of my friends from college is an attorney and he's actually a patent lawyer, works for the US government. And I was like, here's what I got. And I sent it to him. He's like, look, he shouldn't have gotten a trademark for that term. But you just started your blog and it's going to cost you at least $10,000 to prove him wrong. So do you really want to prove him wrong or do you want to, just move on in a different direction? And I was like, okay, well, let's just make it as painful for them as possible. I just made at the time I was like, he could have at least just reached out to me and said, hey, I have a trademark on that. Can you change the URL? It just really came down to, they wanted the URL because the URL had the trademark in it. And, but it stalled me too. It kept me from moving forward because I had to deal with it. And I think, the way I resolved it is I just, changed the URL to LeBauer Consulting. And, if I look back, I should have just made it aaronlebauer.com instead of LeBauer Consulting. But at the time, personal branding wasn't as big of a thing, as important as it is now. So, but the big lesson I look at it from now is when my clients are, getting hate messages, or I get hate messages, I see them and I laugh because I have compassion for people that they just are seeing the world through the wrong lens. I started, instead of holding it into myself, I'll take a screenshot of the hate message and throw it up on Instagram and be like, hey, this is what this person thinks. Clearly, they think I'm doing a bad job. What do you think? It's just it's kind of amusing to me now. But what I tell people is that when you have you're not doing the good job unless you have haters and people who don't like you and sending you messages that you shouldn't be doing it. Because if everyone's only saying yes, well, then you're not pushing the boundaries. And if everyone family is saying no, family saying no is just trying to protect you. But it's other people in your industry who are afraid of you and are scared of you, or you're triggering something in them. It means you're saying and doing the right things,
Mm-hmm. Most of the time. There's some people who do the wrong things, but
yes, there are some people who do the wrong things and are malicious. And, but if you're, to clarify, I've, one of my clients and another one of my friends, they are opinionated and they don't filter what they think, but they also don't attack other people directly, versus some people will attack others for having the wrong opinion. These guys are this is what I believe and this is what you should be doing. And here's the proof. And people don't like to hear the truth. And so as long as you're not being mean and doing something wrong on purpose, if you are pushing boundaries and you're out to change your industry, your community, your world, people aren't going to like it.
Yeah, absolutely not. Which is good. I think it's good to have the haters because they create better marketing, right? It all goes back into the marketing. Just as you mentioned, hey, just take it, throw it up, say, hey, this is what everybody else thinks about me. What do you think? And then that's when you get all your clients who are like, nah, Aaron's legit. He helped me. You're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. And then that's the marketing. You don't even have to have marketing. That's what in this podcast, he said, oh man, he was doing something and his whole career, he had bunches of lawsuits and he loved it because that created lots of controversy. But then he won this mega case and nobody ever sued him again. So he quit and he sold the business because he's like, it was no fun anymore. There was no more hate in that industry. So I'm like, yeah, I get it. You want the controversy. Yeah. That's kind of what you are aiming for. So as we wrap up here, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, maybe they're already in physical therapy, they want to go off into their own, but quite frankly, maybe they're just a business owner and they want better understanding how to grow a business, because these principles are going to be the same no matter what business, probably more effective in a service-based business, but it's going to be the same principles in every business. How would they get in touch with you to actually see if they would be a good fit to work with you?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is to go follow me on Instagram, which is at Aaron LeBauer, and it's 2 A's, AARON, LeBauer with a B. If you have trouble finding me, put that into Google. It shouldn't be a problem. You should find me in Google for sure.
You'll find him. He's got red hair, at least red beard. Yep. Lucky.
That's right. Tall. I'm 6'3". You can't tell on video, but you know.
I would not have guessed 6'3", but that's good. Your camera is the right height.
Yeah, my camera's a little high, so it makes me look a little shorter. But
it's attached to the ceiling. It's attached to the ceiling. No, I'm just teasing. So here we're going to get into we call it Legacy on Rapid Fire. 5 questions, 1 word to 1 sentence answers. Mm-hmm. What do you feel like has been your greatest accomplishment to this point in your life?
Oh, my kids.
Your kids. And what's been the hardest thing you've ever had to overcome?
Challenges in having family relationships,
I do know. I do know. So what are 1 or 2 books that you would recommend to your Fuel Your Legacy audience?
Yeah. Oh, great books. Guerrilla Marketing by J. Conrad Levinson. It was the first marketing book. So I'm sure there's an updated one, but that was like the one that made the biggest impact on me early on. And I think Way of the Wolf by Jordan Belfort. I would even recommend getting the audiobook because he narrates it and he talks so much about tonality. You need to hear his tone. So I would get that one as an audiobook for sure.
Awesome. Love it. Audio and physical. I think that one is good to read and mark up at the same time.
Right.
Some books
100%.
are better on audio, some are not, but that one's a good one to read and mark up.
Yep.
What's one thing you believe is holding you back from reaching the next level of your legacy today?
Holding me back? Belief and being able to see myself at the next level.
Hey, that's huge. That's a huge thing. And learning to visualize that next level that's a skill that I've had to develop over the years, and it's a never-ending process for me. Perfect. So this is the final question. My favorite question, really why I do this whole show, is because I want to know how people want to be remembered. So if 6 years from now, six generations from now, so your great grandchildren, they're sitting around a table discussing your life, the impact you had, and the legacy you left, what do you want them to be saying about Aaron LeBauer 6 generations from now?
I want them saying Aaron's the one that got people in the United States to understand that when they hurt or in pain, they need to see a physical therapist and get a total body diagnostic.
Awesome. And that's very direct and clear. I love it.
Yep.
And super excited. Hey, if you guys have a chance, please just go out and at least follow him on Instagram and get educated so you can better understand your own body. And then when it gets to the time, or if it gets to the time, reach out to him. And if it's a good fit, he'll be a great coach for you. Honestly, be able to help you grow any business, I'm pretty sure, because the principles of business are the same. So that being said, thanks a bunch, Aaron, and we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy Show. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me, and if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.